welcome back to the Remarkable Life podcast, where we talk faith, leadership, purpose, and living a life that truly matters. I'm your host, Warren Curry. Glad to be back with you all again for another episode of the Remarkable Life podcast. This podcast is all about helping you to live with intention, to lead with purpose, and to live a life that truly matters. Happy New Year. Welcome to 2026. This is the first episode in the new year. Today I'll be sharing the second installment of a mini series, if you will, that I started at the end of last month in December, and I believe that it is an episode that is going to help you to get your year off on the right foot. Last month, with the first installment of this, talked about the importance of decision making. And we know, we know, especially as adults, that your life, every single day of your life, is littered with a multitude of decisions that we face each and every single day. And I have just found that decision making is a skill. A lot of people are afraid to make decisions because a lot of the decisions or choices that they made in times past did not give them the desired result, or the result that they longed for or desired, left them with a bad taste in their mouth. And so now people are a little gun shy with making decisions, or they just, kind of just leave the decision making process to make decisions for themselves. And anytime we take that approach, it always ends up in disaster. And so yeah, I just, I know that in order for us to have any kind of impactful life, it really boils down to the choices or the decisions that we make. Last month, we talked about how decisions determines outcomes. And if we don't make the right decisions, or at least decisions to the best of our ability, based on the information and the data that we have available when it comes time to make those decisions, we will find ourselves in our lives, just living in disarray. So I'm looking forward to being able to just share information with you guys today that hopefully will be helpful to you, beneficial, and help you to make better decisions in this new year. So again, happy new year. Welcome to 2026. Super duper excited about this year. This is the first full week of this new year. And this is typically around a time of year where people are excited. People are right in the crucible, in the midst of making all of the resolutions and say changes. I'm going to do this different this year and this different and all of these things. And but a lot of people fall off the bandwagon because decisions determine outcomes. We've got to decide something different if we want different kinds of results, and we have to be able to do that over the long term, a longer period of time, if we want to see the fullness and the fulfillment of God's promises, come to pass in our life. And so I'm super looking forward to just sharing today. Hopefully, that as I do so, it will impact your tomorrow. Amen. So thank you guys for tuning in to the 16th episode of the Remarkable Life podcast. Last episode last year, also last month in December, was the 15th episode. It kicked off this whole series about decision making. That 15th episode was titled "You Die Looking Like Your Decisions." I know that title can sound kind of graphic or kind of grim, but the reality is, it's the truth. It's a reality that you die looking like your decisions. And that phrase came from a sermon that I heard from, I think, Bishop Dale Bronner out of Atlanta, Georgia, some years ago, where he made a simple phrase, and it was this: that when you're born looking like your mother and father, but when you die looking like your decisions. And it just, when I heard that initially, several years ago, man, that thing hit me like a ton of bricks because it is the God honest truth that if you want, things to be better, we have to choose better. And that always really stuck with me. And I've shared that quote on several occasions when in my speaking, on online platforms, so on and so forth, because it's the truth, Roof. That when you're born looking like your parents, your mother and father, but when you die looking like the decisions, or in this case, what is the focus of my episode today, the lack of decision or the indecisions that you have not made, because indecision is still a decision. And so we are going to do a deep dive into that emphasis today, talking about, why people, really become, I guess, afraid of making the decisions that are needed and necessary in order to, really make their lives, better. You can't live on autopilot. You got to make decisions. You got to be intentional so that you can have a remarkable life. All right. So we're going to dive into it. But before we do that, um, for those that are tuning in, or you just maybe you're a new listener, if you are, welcome to the Remarkable Life podcast with Warren Curry. I'm your host, and so if you haven't had an opportunity to subscribe to my Substack platform yet, I would encourage you to do so. You can go to warrencurryjr.substack.com, subscribe there. We've got a lot of different content that I share, podcast episodes, some articles that I've written, video excerpts that I've shared on that episode on that platform as well. So I encourage you, warrencurryjr.substack.com, to go and subscribe. It's free. You can also be a paid subscriber if you want, so you can get more exclusive content that is not available to free subscribers. And I would appreciate if you do that, or if you do subscribe, also share it with someone that you feel like can find some benefit, or be beneficial rather, of the information that I share on there. I shared an article, I think it was right before, I can't remember if it was before the new year or shortly after the new year, talking about New Year, New You. That's the title of that article. It is not a podcast episode, but I would highly encourage you to do a deep dive into that, because it is one of those things that is important, especially as it pertains to what people are, the changes that people are looking to make for the new year. It is dealing, really kind of exclusively with health, because our health is one of the things that we find especially as we age or get older, has a tendency of being one of the most things that are neglected. And so I share some tips, some tools that hopefully that will encourage and inspire you in your health journey. You only get one body. You got to take care of it. You got to prioritize it. If you don't, you're going to make your future a lot harder because of the lack of decisions, or poor decisions, or indecision that we make today. So I encourage you to check that out. It's called A New Year, New You. Fantastic article that I shared for the new year. All right. So yeah, and that's on the Substack platform as well. Warren Curry Jr.substack.com. All right. So let's get into it. So indecision is a decision. The reality is that, uh, uh, all of our lives, we're faced with a ton of different decisions that we have to make, each and every day. And some people find decision making a lot easier, than other people. It's just the truth. But other people don't find decision making as easy. I believe that some of it is temperament, some of it is personality, but a lot of it, I also believe, is people's past trying to dictate their future. People have made decisions in the past. Some of us have been erratic or sporadic with the decisions that we've made, and it brought about less than desirable results or very painful results. And so it has made us, if we could just keep it 100, just really made us afraid to make decisions today. And so you have to get over that fear. You have to get over the hesitancy. You have to get over the uncertainty. You have to get over those things if you're going to be effective and live a remarkable life. Because people who are living remarkable lives or exceptional lives, their lives are riddled with the decisions that they make every single day. Where they're going to live, what school they're going to put their kids into. Are they going to start this business? Are they going to stay at this job? Are they going to leave this job? Are they going to go for the promotion? They're going to go back to school. Who are they going to marry? Are they going to remain single? What is their diet going to consist of? What kinds and types of financial vehicles that are available should I put money into? To invest and save for my future. Right? There are so many different decisions that we have to face each and every day or every week, every month, of our lives. And, the excuse of, hey, I'm just going to leave it to someone else, or I don't know anything about that. That cannot be your approach. If you don't know something, there's so much information that's available today, for you to be able to learn about it, figure stuff out, so on and so forth. Or you can also ask people who'd be willing to help you. You'd be willing to help provide guidance. Everyone, is not looking to charge, an arm and a leg to help people out, in life, and so we can't we can't be afraid to make decisions because decisions that we've made in the past have not been the best. And so that's really the focus and the emphasis on today's episode is it's actually titled Indecision is a decision. Indecision is a decision. It's still a decision. And so even if you are, don't think that you're the best at decision making, one thing we cannot afford to do is be indecisive or not make a decision, because as we do that, we are still making a decision. And so I know that a lot of the some of us are super analytical. Some of us are risk averse. We don't like to really take risks. We don't like to be the decision maker in the event that say that things didn't pan out or work out like you had hoped. And so now you don't want the brunt or the full weight of that responsibility to rest squarely on your shoulders. And so it's very easy for you to either shelve that decision or try to push it off on somebody else, or what have you. You just, but you've got to make a decision. We cannot continue to live and lead indecisive lifestyles, because it's not actually helping you, it's actually crippling you. And so we've got to put our best foot forward, be courageous, have faith and trust in God, that trust that the Lord is going to lead us, particularly as we place these things before him in prayer, and we're trying to get clarity and insight, concerning the decisions that we make. We're not, leaning to our own understanding, but we're acknowledging God in all of our ways, knowing that he's going to direct our paths. And as we do those things, we can trust and know that he has our best interest at hand. Amen. And so, because I see a lot of Christians, I've seen a lot of Christians in times past, also in times present, that are, that you are victims of overthinking. You have more hesitancy or hesitation tendencies than is actually normal. A lot of times, I've also seen people, particularly believers, who try to abdicate their responsibility to make decisions. They try to put it on the Lord in the sense of, well, I'm just waiting for clarity, or I prayed, I'm waiting for an answer when, and I do understand why people take this approach, because sincere, earnest, well-meaning individuals, they want to keep their lives centered in God's will. So I completely understand that, but I also understand, conversely, that God gave us a mind, a sound mind, a rational mind, a logical mind, to be able to, and he expects us to use that mind in conjunction with the mind of Christ, with the available data, or the data that's been made available to us, so that we can make decisions that will, benefit you and be a blessing to God's kingdom. And so, because I just, so many people are just, well, I just prayed, I didn't get an answer, and I'm still waiting, and yada, yada, yada. And I understand taking that approach for a period of time. But, if, you are still praying about something, like I saw somebody post something the other day on Threads, and I'm not knocking folk. I'm just saying it don't take this long. And someone said, "Hey, I've been living in the city. I forget what city it was, and they had been there for, like, I don't know, 5 years or so." And say, hey, they were still praying about the church that they were supposed to be a part of in this new city. Yeah, it don't take 5 years to figure that out. It just really doesn't. That's nonsensical. When if something is important to you, you make it a priority. As a believer, a local church family, a faith community, that should be something that is of importance to you, particularly if you live in a city where, maybe you're a foreigner too. You're not a native of that city, and you don't have any community, any kind of, people, any kind of relationships, folk that are looking out for you, and you're looking out for them. You need to plant yourself and put roots down somewhere. And so you pray, you do research, pros and cons. You visit these places. You ask the Lord to lead you. You ask for recommendations. You do all of the above. You do all of these things. And I'm telling you, as you put your best foot forward, it is not going to take no 5 years to make a decision to do something like that. Or I see this in dating a lot, where people are date someone. We're like, and I'll be like, "Oh, okay, you guys are a cute couple. How long you been, dating, seriously dating? Are you engaged?" Well, no, we're not engaged. We're about to get, engaged. Well, how long y'all been dating? Well, we've been together, exclusive for 8 years. Come on, guys. I mean, man, come on, man. You're in a monogamous, committed relationship, with each other. You're not, you have the expectation. You're not dating anyone outside of each other. You traveling together, you vacationing together, you know, driving each other cars, you got shared bank accounts, you're buying assets together, you're doing all this kind of stuff, but you haven't made the commitment to move together in the sense of getting married in holy matrimony. Come on, y'all, don't take a long time. It don't take that long, and so, when you have committed and invested and you've given someone your heart in that manner, particularly if you live in the same city, it is not wise, to weave together every aspect of your life for, that, long periods of time like that, without making the decision to move forward in marriage, because when you're like that, other aspects of the romantic relationship, like sexual intercourse and stuff, that's inevitable, and you want to, walk and live upright before God, and not find yourself fornicating and getting into sin and sinful practices. And so, it's like, hey, if you know, and your families, have gotten buy-in, and you've gotten counsel and all of that, make the decision and move forward, and really commit to each other in marriage. And don't be like, hey, well, we've been engaged for 9 years. We got to do something better. And I know, again, a lot of times, particularly if people have been divorced, or they have had a really painful romantic past or relationship in the past, They are gun shy, right? They're hesitant. They're like, man, I'm afraid to do this again. And they may not actually say those words. They may not articulate that sentiment and that expression. It may not come out of their mouth in that way, but that's exactly what they're saying through their actions, right? They're saying through their actions that I am afraid to make a decision to fully commit to this person 100%, 110% because of, potentially the negative things that I've experienced before with other relationships in the past. Well, can I just say this to you? That relationship that you have given an opportunity for, the one that you're currently in, it's not your past relationships. You can't make your present person pay for past pain from other people. That's not fair to them. That's not fair to you. You have to wipe the slate clean, wipe the chalkboard or the whiteboard clean and start all over again. And you're starting over with this person you've already, made the decision to move forward, and you're in some kind of romantic committed relationship with them. Go ahead and go all the way and say I do to each other so that you can experience the full measure and blessing from the Lord that comes upon a couple's marital union. Okay, and so, but I get it. People are, they can be indecisive and it can be very frustrating, particularly when I see this with women, because they're just like, women. They don't, for a lot of them. I don't want to make the generalization, for them, it don't take that long. They'll be like, "Yeah, I'm just, we've been together 6 years. I'm just waiting on him to pop the question." I'll be like, "Bro, what are you doing?" You know what I'm saying? We can do better. And I'm just hoping that this episode encourages you, challenges you, exhorts you to be able to move forward, move past the fear of repeating past mistakes, so that you can, really live and lead a remarkable life, in with all of the blessing and the benefit that God has, in store, for you. Amen. I just, I really want that, excuse me, want that for you. Let me just read this text. Deuteronomy 30:19, chapter 30, verse 19 says, "Today I've given you the choice between life and death, blessings and curses. Now I call on heaven and earth to witness the choice that you make. Oh, that you would choose life so that you and your descendants may live." That was Moses, who's given credit for authoring Deuteronomy, is writing that to the people of God that he's leading under the inspiration of the Spirit of God, and saying that I've given you the choice between life and death. And if you don't know which path to choose, choose life so that you and your descendants may live. Life in your finances, life in your relationships, life with the kinds of things we put into our bodies, life with the friendships or the, whatever kind of working relationships that we put ourselves into a relationship with. Removing ourselves from toxicity, removing ourselves from confusion and chaos, and relationships that are cumbersome and that, drag us down, and you have to expend all of this energy, because this person is, still, immature and carnal and confusing and chaotic. No, Deuteronomy encourages us. It says, choose life, so that not so that just you can live, but so that you and your descendants, the people who are attached to you, the people who, are going to benefit from your obedience, or the decision that you make. It says, choose life so that you and your descendants can live. And I would just fill in that blank, live a remarkable life, because that is the kind and type of life that God has designed, for us to live. And this, the truth is that we can't, live that way if we constantly have our lives earmarked by indecision. And because indecision, y'all, is still a decision. And when we are indecisive, particularly, and I'm not talking about, for a short period of time while you're trying to mull over in your mind and trying to figure out what's the best path forward, or what's my, you know, best next step. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about, you know, you have to make a decision, and you just shelve the responsibility. You just put that thing on the back burner, and you just like, hey, you know what, this thing, you kind of just put your life on autopilot or put it on coast, and you're just like, oh, I'm not going to do this like ever, or you're going to wait until your hand is forced for you to actually have to make a decision. And as you do that, as you know, put those things on the back burner, the things that you should be facing, you know, so that you can, make the decision on, time keeps moving, opportunities keep passing you by. And then what happens is you actually give the power and the authority to other people to start making decisions for you. The article that I shared about in the beginning of this episode, a new year, new you, that I shared either at the end of last year or the very beginning of this year, talking about, you know, making small health choices today that is going to benefit and bless your tomorrow. You know, that's one of the things that I shared in that particular article, because, like, you know, just I just think about, just our day-to-day health, what we eat, how our sleeping habits, I meet grown people like, I don't eat vegetables, I don't drink water. I mean, like, what? You can't drink soda and energy drinks and coffee and whatever else, and sugar on top of sugar. You can't do that. That is going to destroy your life and destroy your future. And so, I don't like the taste of water, and I don't like whatever. You got to figure something out, because there are going to be things in life that we may not particularly like or particularly care for, but that are beneficial for us. And I've met people who, take great pride in, I only sleep 3 or 4 hours a night. Something is wrong with you, and that is going to end up catching up to you, if you continue to, short circuit your future like that. And so, but the point that I was alluding to is, about other people, will, when you refuse to make a decision, you ultimately are putting your future in other people's hands, and they will ultimately end up deciding for you, because you weren't willing to make the necessary decisions that you needed to make for your life. And I see this a lot, particularly as we age. You start to get into your 50s, your 60s, your 70s, and the decisions that we make today concerning, how we eat, if we exercise, getting the right kind of sleep, getting the right kind of rest on a weekly basis, all of those things. It's like, if we don't do that now, it is going to negatively affect us in the future. And then all of a sudden, particularly if you really value independence, which I do, I don't want nobody showering me, bathing me, having to groom me when I'm in my 70s, because I was unwilling to take care of myself in my 40s and my 50s. I don't want to, have my driving privileges suspended. I want to have independence. I want to have autonomy. I want to have freedom. I want to have a remarkable life. And, but that comes, having a remarkable life comes, one day at a time and one decision at a time. And when we don't make those necessary adjustments in our today, you are stripping yourself of your independence and your power, and you're handing that over to people who are going to make decisions for you tomorrow. And so I see it all the time. I've been in a position where, I'm the oldest of four of my parents, out of their children, and I've been blessed enough and fortunate enough to, see my parents age and to be able to care for them as they've aged. But my mom, she passed relatively young, 62 years old. She's been deceased 9 years now. My dad's got a birthday coming up in a couple of weeks. He'll be 74. He's got his own health challenges and stuff. And as I see their mortality, these people who I've known obviously my whole life, and I see other people, other relatives or friends, or, people that I've known for decades now, and I see them slowing down, or I see a lot of things, them starting to really break down because of, not properly, making the decision to care for themselves as they were younger. I'm just like, nah, man, later for that. I don't want that. And so we have to be decisive, not be afraid to, make decisions, as we, so that we can move forward in a healthy, vibrant, and productive manner, in our lives. And again, I just, I know that a lot of people, really struggle with this or deal with this because, they, are experiencing, for some folks, real a mental or emotional block, as it pertains to, making these decisions. There's a fear of repeating past mistakes. You've been wrong before. Well, hello, join the club. We've all been wrong before, been wrong, been there, done that, got the t-shirt for. All of us have been wrong before. All of us will be wrong in the future at some point. But just because we've were wrong or didn't make the best choice or, made a decision based on the partial data or information that we had. And then that thing ended up blowing up in our face. We're like, oh, doggone it, but, just because you made, maybe, not the best choice in the past and it caused you some pain, doesn't mean that that thing should be empowered to be able to cripple you in your present and stop you from deciding, things that are good for your future now. And so we have to get over or get past the fear of repeating past mistakes. Another thing that I see a lot with people, particularly I see this in instances where there are married couples and the male in the marriage or in the relationship, he might take a very passive approach to decision making, and the woman takes a very active approach to decision making, and she doesn't want to necessarily take this active approach. She wants to share the responsibility, or she wants him to take the lead some or more than she's been taking it. But because of his passivity and because of his indecisiveness, and because decisions have to be made in real time concerning their faith, their family, their finances, and their future, she continues to step to the plate time again and make time and again and make these decisions. And as a result, now she is starting to experience decision fatigue, right? Because you're just like, man, all she feels like all of the burden, all of the decision making, all of the weight of carrying this household, the responsibility of that is upon me, and she gets tired, of making, all of the decisions, and is very frustrating for her, because the hubby or the significant other refuses to man up or to step up to the plate, to help share the load and the responsibility. And so as a result, sometimes, the person's family or their household is put on autopilot, because of decision fatigue. And so, that's just obviously it's not a good thing. We need to, they need to be able to move past that so they can make decisions that benefit their future. And then another thing is that in this decision fatigue, also it just brings about emotional overload, because it's just like, man, when, you're not clear or you're drained emotionally, it can be very hard to methodically and strategically, make decisions that, that are in your best interests. And so that is something that we have to be wary of, because that also, really affects, the process of how we, come to the conclusion to make decisions. And then also just a loss of self trust. I know I've dealt with this before. I turned 51 last month in December. But 20, almost 30 years ago, I was in my 20s, just out here, out here just making all kinds of decisions that were not good and landed me in a lot of different scenarios and situations and circumstances that not only harmed me but harmed people that love me. And I lost a lot of trust in myself to make decisions. And you get it a lot in your subconscious self-talk we're just like, man, I know I need to do this, but man, last time I did this, man, this thing did not pan out at all. And so, but you have to realize that that your, past mistakes or past poor choices, don't mean just because you made them then like that doesn't mean that, you're going to make the same ones today. Hopefully you're a little bit older, you're a little bit more mature, a little bit wiser, you're a little bit more patient, and you are allowing your path and your process to look different, because you're approaching it in a very intentional way. And so, but I get it. It's like, man, I don't trust myself or just whatever. And if you don't, and there might be some areas of weakness or vulnerability, we need to call on people who love us, who have our best interests at heart, people that you're in relationship with who will be willing to walk alongside you in the areas where you're weak, and and they can provide you objective, advice. You could just say, "Hey, I want to bounce this off of you. Tell me your honest thoughts," and they will. We all need that. We all need, people like that in our lives and in our corner. And that's one reason why the scripture says that there's safety in a multitude of counsel. And so, but, we don't, even as we get counsel or help or insight or clarity from other people, that does not mean that we should try to put the responsibility for making decisions for our own lives in their laps. We can't do that. We got to make decisions and not be afraid and not be indecisive, so that we can move forward, and I get it. There are times where, as you as you prolong, the decision making process, it really will cost you. I mentioned earlier in this podcast, that it'll cost you opportunities. It robs you of time, because time don't stop for nobody. It keeps on moving. It can induce and cause anxiety, because that this is a pressing matter, that you're forced to face, and so you have to do that. It can stall opportunities for growth. Some of you all may be like, man, I know I'm up for this promotion on my job. I remember seeing that before in the past. I used to work a job a long time ago, and if you stayed in this one kind of role, you were protected by the union. But if you ascribe to, a managerial role, you weren't protected by the union. So you might get laid off and just whatever. And so a lot of people, even though there's more money and more responsibility and more opportunities for growth, they would just be like, well, man, what if I lose my job? And so I'm not going to do that. So they would just stay stuck in those other, kind of, you know, uh, j- open door or job entry or whatever you call them, roles, versus trying to really grow and expand, as a professional. And I was just like, I ain't gonna allow my growth to be stunted, And so when the opportunity came in that particular job, I was at for about 3 years, I took my last year. I got promoted, and I, had a team of like 24 direct reports, and I grew and I learned so much in that role before I ultimately left that job and I started my business, many years ago. And so, just being indecisive, it can stunt your growth, and so you can't do that. And then it also, we just talked about how it can just exhaust you emotionally and all of that. And so that's, later for that stuff, man, we have to keep those things behind us, and so that we can move forward into the opportunities that God has, ahead of us. And so, so I just want to challenge the listeners that are out there. Maybe you are at a crossroads in your life, and you are forced and faced with having to make some decisions that you are, probably, if you keep it honest, you're really kind of terrified to make. You might be deciding, do I leave this toxic marriage? You've exhausted all of your options. Your significant other, your spouse, they haven't shown any kind of resolve or willingness to change or adapt, or to do whatever. and you guys have, you didn't just have a hit a rough spot, but it's been long, drawn out, rough, tiring seasons, and you've exhausted all the options. You've got counseling, you talked to your pastors, and you sat with your therapist, you've done family counseling, you've had interventions, you've had mediation, all of that, and this person still refuses to stop drinking or stop, doing whatever destructive that may be not only harming him or her, but also, harming your relationship in your household because of the decisions or the lack of decision that they're making that they refuse to make concerning, these other things. And so it has put you in an uncomfortable position or place to make you actually look like the villain because you're like, man, I feel like I need to leave him, or I need to do this for my own safety, for my own sanity, for my own, whatever. But because your lives are so interwoven together financially and relationally, and, maybe, you guys have been together so long, all the years you've had invested, you are afraid to move forward, and with whatever decision that you need to make. And so as a result, you've just been indecisive and you have not made the necessary adjustments that you need so that you can maintain your sanity and your peace. I can't tell you what to do. I just know that the scripture says that the two greatest commandments, that we can have, in life is to love God with all our heart, mind, soul, and strength, and to love your neighbor as you love yourself. And so sometimes, we have to make decisions that require us focusing on ourselves and loving ourselves, because other people have made decisions or they've been indecisive concerning certain things that have been detrimental to, your household or your marriage or whatever for a really, really long time. And so I'm just praying for you and encouraging you that, that as you are, mulling over and praying about, do you take this next step? I'm just praying that God would give you courage and clarity, so that you would know exactly what it is that you're supposed to do. And I kind of just sense that this is actually someone's actual real life scenario, somebody that'll be listening to this episode. And I can just tell you already know what to do, but you just have to have the courage to do it. And I just want to challenge you and challenge, the listening audience, as you are reflecting on the content in this episode, just talking about, indecision is still a decision. I want to just ask you to consider these three things. What are you afraid of losing? And I get it. The fear of loss is a very real thing. But what are you afraid of losing? What discomfort are you avoiding? I know that sometimes decisions that we make us uncomfortable, and some of us don't like change, and so it's just like, so you are avoiding making whatever decisions because you don't want to be uncomfortable and you don't want to change. And so, but I'm posing that question to you: what discomfort are you avoiding? And what this and the third and final question is, what decision would you make if fear wasn't in the room? If you weren't afraid, if you weren't, hesitant, which, can be a form of fear. What decision would you feel empowered to make if, the voice of fear wasn't speaking louder to you, than the voice of reason? And so I just want to just encourage you, and those that are listening, because you might be like, well, Warren, I don't really know, I don't really have clarity, but I understand, that at times that clarity follows obedience. So sometimes you have to make a step or two, and as you do that, clarity will come. A lot of times you're waiting on, what you deem to be, the right step or the next step before you make a decision. And I've seen this a lot also with people where they'd be like, well, I'm waiting on, God to tell me whatever. But sometimes you're waiting on God, but in actuality, God is actually waiting on you. And as you make a decision, then clarity comes, and then understanding comes, and then provision comes, and all of those things. And so I just want to encourage you, just to be active and intentional about the decisions that you make in this year for your life, 2026. And don't be reactive, don't be passive, but to be intentional about the decisions that you make in every area of your life, not just some areas, but in every area of life. Be intentional, be forthright, be forward moving, and not be, later for passivity, later for that stuff. Because if you continue to take that approach, it'll actually cripple your calling and short circuit your faith. And so I just want to encourage you that as you are empowered to make new decisions this year for your life and for your family's future, like Deuteronomy 30:19 says, I just want to encourage you to decide with wisdom. I want to encourage you to decide with faith, and I want to encourage you to decide with the Holy Spirit leading you every step of the way, and just knowing that you have the promise from the Lord that in every decision that you make, that He'll never leave you and He will never ever forsake you. And He didn't just say that as hyperbole; He actually meant it. He's always with us even when we're in the valley of indecision, and He is giving us the wisdom that is needed and necessary so we can make the decision that we need to make so that we can move forward into our futures. And so that's all that I have for today. I'm just, I hope that, something that I shared or said was encourage you, bless you, challenge you to not be passive and not to be reactive, but to be intentional about your life this year. Decisions determine outcomes, y'all. They do. And if you don't like your life and what it looks like every day, you got to make different choices so that your days can look different. And I know some of y'all might feel like, well, I've been on this job 30 years, and it's too late for me to go back to school, or too late for me to do this, or, just whatever. Who said that? You know what I'm saying? And you just there are things that God has in store for our lives. That the scripture says that if we call unto Him, He will show us great and mighty things that we don't know. And if you're still alive, you still got breath in your lungs, you still breathe, and that means He still has got a purpose, for your life, things for you to do. You don't have to live in monotony, and you don't have to live in routine. And your life don't have to be boring and bland and mundane. It don't have to be none of that. It could be remarkable, but it starts with the decisions that you make. And so I just want to encourage you to take to heart and take heed to what I shared in this episode. And also share this episode with someone that you love, that you feel like they've been stuck longer than they like to admit. Maybe they struggle with indecision. Maybe they need, to be empowered, to move forward. And so, don't just take what you're hearing and keep it to yourself, but also share this with someone else. And it may be, hopefully, that it'll be a blessing to them as well. Amen. So, thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of the Remarkable Life podcast. Just remember that growth isn't about perfection, it's about intention. Subscribe on Substack for additional bonus content, and don't miss my next episode. All right. Love you guys. I hope that all is well with you. Hope that your new year is off to a fantastic start. And I look forward to being with you guys all year long here on the Remarkable Life podcast. All right. Have a great day, and talk to you all again soon. All right. God bless.